Okay. Well, I think the way that I have to start this week's episode is well, I gotta make a public apology, I guess. I didn't realize how many of our fans really love their cats.
Huh.
And
major oversight on your part.
I guess what I said last week about skinning your cat if you show up to our live show with it didn't sit well with a lot of our listeners.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Including Elliot and Kylie of one of my favorite movie podcasts, BadDadRadDad. And they actually happen to live in Edmonton. And
didn't they offer to put us up while we're there?
They're actually putting us up while we're there.
Still?
Well, I got a video from Elliot, which is one of the big reasons why I feel the need to apologize right now for the whole cat debacle from last week. This is what Elliot said.
If you fucking touch my cat and try to skin it when you're staying at my house, I'm gonna drug you all in the night, skin each of you, and switch your skins.
Wow.
And then who will know who's who? Not me. I'm really excited that you're coming to stay with us.
So yeah, I mean, like even though he was really cute there at the end, I could see the rage, and it wasn't just Elliot. I got death threats. So I should have known better because there was that documentary that came out about the guy drowning bags of cats or whatever. And
don't fuck with cats.
Yeah, right. So
I think that was the guy that was chopping people's heads off.
He was also doing that. I didn't do that. I haven't done that yet.
I just want to say, if Elliot did skin us and switched our skins, whose skin would you guys want?
I don't want either of your skin. I mean, I definitely don't want this guy's skin because, like, waking up with that oil would just be the worst.
Did you warn Elliot about Taylor's, like, what's the rooming situation?
No,
there?
I didn't tell him about how Taylor like changes the humidity in a house when he wakes up in the
But
morning.
you have to wear less layers in the winter because I've got a hair layer.
So anyway, I'm sorry. I have a cat, Vonnegut, and I love him very much. And I mean, Donut's more of a cat than a dog, really. So I do love cats, and I didn't mean that. And if you are a cat lover, you're actually more than welcome to come to our live show. Tickets are on sale now. Go buy tickets in the links in the show notes. Edmonton, September 19th, and Vancouver, September 21st. We can't wait. It's going to be super fun. I love cats. I think dogs are better, but we'll just leave it at that.
I also want to say that if you're not watching us on YouTube, then you're missing out because there was a number of comments that were made about the fact that while you were going off about cats last week, I'm glad that people can see me because they were noticing that I was sort of sitting there in shock and disdain at the things that you were saying. Yeah. And they were like, Brian is not cool with this. Yeah. And while I am a dog person, you know, I was mildly offended at what you said. So I'm glad you apologized.
And even though I may have said that we're anti-cat, and if you are a cat lover, that we're anti-you, even though I might have said that, it was said under duress. I was saying that because of the way that Jeremy was looking at me while he was saying that, and I felt very threatened. So I said that out of fear, and as you know, and Jeremy's apologized. I'm not sure how sincere his apology is, or what it means that or not. But I didn't mean it ever in the first place.
I didn't think you did either. I could tell that. Yeah, you're being very genuine.
Yeah, and you could tell by YouTube, from YouTube. You know, if you're watching on YouTube, you'd know. But I was very afraid.
How funny would it be if we showed up to our live shows out west with merch that were just like dead cats?
I can make a dead cat shirt.
We could definitely test it out to see how funny it would be.
Skinned cat.
You guys want to hear something fucking bonkers?
We should have a shirt that says, I got my cat skinned at a Sick Boy show.
Yes. That sounds naughty for some reason. This is a crazy story coming out of the New York Times. So you guys know what a doppelganger is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this isn't. We're not getting into twin territory here, but we're getting kind of close.
We love
Hold on,
twins.
before we get into
We do.
doppelganger territory, what famous person do people say is your doppelganger? Do you ever get that?
I do, yeah, and I never understood it.
Well, no, I mean, you can never get what people say. You know what I mean? Like when someone says you look like somebody, your natural reaction is always going to be, no, I don't see it. Because you find yourself to be the most unique person. I don't mean you
I don't think
specifically.
people think I look like him. I think it's people think that I give off like some sort of air that is like similar to him. It's the guy, I forget his name, the guy from New Girl.
The guy from New
Oh
Girl.
yeah, that's right. I've heard people say that to you actually.
I don't know. I don't even know his
Zooey
name.
Deschanel?
Yeah, that dude.
I oftentimes get Brad Pitt. I mean, I don't really see it, but yeah.
It's hilarious because your identical twin brother's doppelganger is Matt Damon,
Yeah.
but not yours.
Yeah.
You know what I always got growing up?
Steve Buscemi.
No, was Chris Pontius.
Oh yeah, dude, yeah. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, I see that too, actually.
Well, your doppelganger is out there, and you probably share DNA with them.
I actually do.
This is not twins. So that person who looks just like you is not your twin. But if scientists compared your genomes, they might find a lot in common. So this is here are some photos. This was part of a photographer's project, Francois Brunel. The project is called "I'm Not a Lookalike." So here's the first one. These guys not related.
Oh,
Kind of
look
wild.
related.
They look very related.
very.
These two ladies not related.
I don't see much of a well, I mean,
I definitely do.
Yeah, me too.
This one here not related. Although I do feel like these guys could date.
I feel like you know what I feel like they actually kind of fucked up on this pair, and they were like, when they actually got them into a room together, they went, oh wow, they actually don't look very much alike. Let's get them to take their shirts off. Because they have a very similar like waist to neck.
So these pictures are not identical twins. They are some of the subjects in Francois Brunel's photography project, quote, "I am not a lookalike," which features portraits of hundreds of unrelated lookalikes. It gained popularity online and caught the attention of scientists who study genetic relationships. In a new study, Dr. Manel Esteller, a researcher in Barcelona, and his team recruited 32 pairs of lookalikes from Brunel's photographs to take DNA tests and complete questionnaires about their lifestyles. The researchers used facial recognition software to quantify the similarities between the participants' faces. 16 of those 32 pairs achieved similar overall scores to identical twins analyzed by the same software.
Whoa, that's crazy. Did it say how they found the pairs?
I don't know how he actually like brought these people together.
This sounds like
That would be crazy.
it. Like I know that we just did this episode about ADHD, and like thinking about the steps involved, like in a certain thing, overwhelms me. And saying that there's likely somebody who looks like you out there in the world,
Yeah.
and then having to try to find and photograph that person
Yeah.
is such an overwhelming endeavor to me. It sounds, and the fact that they did like over 100 pairs of people,
Yeah.
and also my brain also would be like, you find like two people who are like pretty similar, but then you're like, fuck, like is there? But there's almost 8 billion people on the planet. Like, is there a better match
'cause,
out
like,
there?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing you didn't do this.
Yeah,
project.
Because like these
absolutely.
guys, there's no better match.
Yeah, they're great.
Like these guys, it's
first
it's
guys, yeah.
wild.
It is
Yeah.
pretty nuts. Yeah.
You know what's funny is you could almost, not quite, but you could almost put our friend Andrew O'Coin in there. And
Yeah.
he would also
Yeah, I
kinda
see
look
it.
a little bit like those guys.
Yeah, I guess so.
So the researchers then compared the DNA of those 16 pairs that were like matching up as similarly to identical twins. And they compared the DNA of these 16 pairs of doppelgangers to see if their DNA was as similar as their faces. Dr. Esteller found that the 16 pairs who were true, quote, true lookalikes shared significantly more of their genes than the other 16 pairs that the software deemed less similar. These people really look alike because they share important traits or parts of the genome or the DNA sequence, he said. That people who look more alike have more genes in common would seem like common sense, but never has it been shown, he added.
Right.
However, DNA alone doesn't tell the whole story of our makeup. Our lived experiences and those of our ancestors influence which of our genes are switched on or off. What scientists call our epigenome.
It's crazy because like it does, when that sentence, like it would seem that this is common sense to some extent.
Yeah.
Like it does seem that way when you first think about it, but it also feels like there's so overwhelmingly like so many different combinations.
So there's a really interesting part about why we may potentially be seeing this now.
But like to boil it down, if you think of like eye color, you know, like there's like certain parts of your genetics that like determine, or a certain part that like determines the color of your eyes. And like, you know, there's only so many potential options for eye color. So you can like, you know, if you have brown eyes and somebody else has brown eyes, then you're like, eyes are like twins.
Yes.
You know, doppelganger eyes.
Yeah. So again, they were saying that it's not just the DNA that tells the whole story of our makeup. You've got our lived experiences and those of our ancestors, our microbiome, our microscopic co-pilot made up of bacteria, fungi, and viruses is further influenced by our environment. Dr. Esteller found that while doppelganger genomes were similar, their epigenomes and microbiomes were very different. Genetics put them together, and epigenetics and microbiome pulls them apart, he says. This discrepancy tells us that the pair's similar appearances have more to do with their DNA than with the environments that they grow up in. And that surprised Dr. Esteller, who had expected to see a bigger environmental influence. Because the doppelganger's appearances are more attributable to shared genes than shared life experience, it means that, to some extent, their similarities are just the luck of the draw, spurred on by population growth. There are after all only so many ways to build a face. So he said, quote, "Now that there are so many people in the world, that the system is repeating itself." So we've gotten to a population size where it's just going to become more and more common that there's going to be more and more people that look more and more similar to us, because it's like the story's been written as many times as it can be written.
You know what it's
and
like?
now it's just going to be continuously written the same way over and over and over again.
It's like it's sort of like if you just kept on extrapolating. So imagine the scenario where humans never go extinct and the earth never becomes swallowed up by the sun.
Sure.
In a billion years. And let's just say that it just goes on and on and on forever, and we just keep on replicating and population growth and whatever, and let's say that's all possible. Then eventually you get to like a similar type of place. You'd get to a similar type of place with people as we have theoretically gotten to with the like many worlds or like infinite worlds theory, where you exist infinite times over in every single circumstance. Just think of everything everywhere all at once.
The multiverse.
Yeah, there is an infinite number of you, and because there's infinite and it never ends, anything you could possibly think of happening in your life is happening somewhere out in the infinite number of universes that are occurring. So every possible iteration and trying to wrap your head around that is so mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's overwhelming, and it makes me think about how much easier this project would be now when you compare it relatively to that fucking
Did we just come up with a strategy for you?
Yeah, that is like think about the more overwhelming thing, and then suddenly the thing that was previously overwhelming isn't so overwhelming.
And what's it like? Shooting with a weighted puck. It's a fucking hockey reference for the win.
That's annoying.
Alrighty. Anyway, were you done your point?
Well, I was just, we're on our way.
Yeah.
We're on our way to replicating so many times that, and do you think that's sort of trippy for genetics? Like, is genetics going, holy fuck? If genetics could speak, are they going, holy shit? We've like almost reached the end of the iterations.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting that this didn't really surprise the scientist, but he was like, but we've never actually known this to be like we assume this, but we
assume
didn't.
It in theory.
Yeah.
Or theory suggests that this is this is the case, but we haven't really
because it's like taking a blade of grass in a field and picking every other blade of grass until you find one that looks exactly the same.
Now, if you were a part of this project and you met your doppelganger and you looked as similar as you do, like these two do you think you'd be compelled to like? I mean, maybe not you because you already have an identical twin, but like, do you think that you'd be compelled to want to hang out with that, but like be like, I want you to be in my life. This is so crazy to me.
Well, here's the thing. And this is interesting because I think this is just a perspective thing, and it's just how we see reality and the way that we perceive, images with our eyes and our brains, how our brains interpret what we see, is that when you say that you could slot Andrew Coyne in there, you said, yeah. And I was like, those two people, they might go, I get what you mean, but I don't think I look like that person.
If these guys think they don't look like each other, right? They might have visual impairment.
I get it, but it's a perspective thing, and I think that you probably have this more than anybody else because you have somebody who looks exactly
You're pointing
like
at
you.
me, yeah.
I'm pointing at Brian, and because but just because you have somebody that looks exactly like you, quote unquote. I don't think so, but I mean, most people.
I mean, I think
that.
Dennis and I look alike.
Yeah,
right.
You definitely look very much alike.
But you have such a unique. But you're
different people.
You see yourself as such a unique individual, and so one off, even though genetically you're not. That it can be hard for somebody to even recognize similarities. Even when they're striking.
Right. Yeah, but Jared, I can play this game with you because I have a twin, but if we found somebody who was looked like a triplet to us.
A triplet doppelganger.
I would be I'd be like, I feel like based on what you look like, maybe we have some things in common, and therefore I feel a connection to you immediately. I would feel connected.
I think Matt Damon looks more like Dennis than you look like Dennis.
That's crazy.
And
that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You might have
exactly,
visual
but that's
impairment.
what I'm saying is that's a perspective, and Dennis doesn't see that. You don't see that. You don't see that. I see that. But I'm saying that you put two people that look.
What do you
very
see?
much
Like,
alike.
what does your red look like, dude? Like when you see color, what are you fucking seeing?
I mean, there's no red at all in this room.
Well, that's you're wrong, big time wrong. I just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
0
7, 8.
red.
Yeah. Well, here's another interesting thought. Little funny thing. How trippy is it that they just happen to find people that I'm guessing are probably somewhat similar in age, but if this is the case, there's and this makes me think about Hudson. Hudson could be my doppelganger. Because
your nephew,
my nephew. Because if you go to my Instagram right now and you look at the latest photo that I put up of me and my nephew, we do look very much alike. Me as a fucking 34-year-old adult and him as a 6-year-old boy. But when he's 34, how much like me is he going to look? Could it be that he just happens to be my actual doppelganger, just a bit younger?
That would be crazy. But also you share, but it would kind of make sense because you shared DNA, right?
Yeah.
So the other interesting thing I was thinking that would suck, and this is getting into the superficial and the caveat to this is looks aren't everything, obviously, but wouldn't it be
they're a lot,
really
though.
annoying that if you met your doppelganger and they were just 5% more handsome than you?
Oh, I'd be so annoyed.
Would that just be a bit of a bummer?
You could look at these two guys and say one of them is more handsome than the other.
Right,
I'm not
just
gonna say
slightly,
who.
just
I'm not
slightly.
gonna say
But
which
that's
one.
just perspective. That's just perspective.
No. It's
a
not
reality. It's a
quantifiable.
shared reality.
It's an objective reality.
It's not though.
It is though.
It's not.
Well, it is though. Steve Lund is more handsome than all three of us put together to anybody. And anybody who doesn't agree with that is visually impaired.
But that's an extreme example because Steve is in a very small percentage of people that look like that.
But my
look
girlfriend told me that
way.
I'm more handsome than him.
That's very nice of you, Maddie. That's very nice. Very
but if
sweet
you
of
put people that stand next to each other and look,
I didn't believe
very
it.
much, if you took somebody like dude, Steve looks a lot like Jim Carrey. They look very alike.
I don't see it.
And you could put them.
You have a weird.
Dude, you got a weird perception of
Dude,
what
that's
people look
crazy.
like.
Dude, you could put Jim Carrey and Steve Lund next to each other, and then it would be just a perspective thing about who's more good looking.
You know what's really funny though is like I know you're saying this about the perspective thing, but I guarantee you actually that if you met your doppelganger and you guys looked as similar as these two look to each other, you'd be fucking them. All right, moving on.
I'm so
you're so into yourself that you just you'd fuck that guy.
What are you talking
until
about?
He couldn't walk anymore. You'd break his back. All right.
I'm so into myself.
Let's move on. This is coming from our good friend down in Salem, Mel. Big shout out, Mel. Thank you. You get producer of the week this week. And you could get producer of the week too. Come on over to our Discord and join the conversation over there. And you can contribute to things that we read on our Feel Good Friday episodes. Do you guys know what BV is?
Yes, that's the thing that makes your vagina smell.
It can. Yeah, it's called
bacteria vaginosis.
Bacterial vaginosis. Yeah,
Right.
that's right. So this is an interesting article regarding BV. Nation's first vaginal fluid transplants offer hope for millions.
Oh, crazy.
Wow. Hold on. Did we what did we cover that was totally insane recently about doing something to your vagina? That I feel like
Steaming
had
it
to
or
do with
sunning
that.
it.
No, we didn't talk about that.
Wasn't
But people do too.
It wasn't steaming it. What was that? We just covered that. Some person had some like whack thing that you could do. Oh, it was rubbing your
vaginal fluids.
rubbing your fucking juices on your neck
dabbing.
or something like perfume.
Sorry,
vabbing.
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 right.
Vabbing.
This is very different from vabbing. Very, very, very different. Vabbing, not necessary. This could pretty
Maybe
necessary.
necessary.
Yeah, very necessary. At any given moment, almost 1 in 3 women in the U.S. has BV.
Whoa.
And the numbers are even higher for certain groups. More than 50% of African American women have the condition. BV has been linked to serious long-term health issues, and yet for many people, medicine does not have a good treatment. But now there's new hope. This summer, Massachusetts General Hospital started performing the first vaginal fluid transplants in the U.S. After years of delay, the hope is that this study will offer insight that can help an estimated 21 million Americans, from teenagers to middle-aged women who have BV.
If it's that common, like is there like a spectrum of how intense it can affect someone? Because
I think
I obviously I don't know anything about this, which is why, I had that sort of stigma or stereotype that or the only thing I could remember about it is it can make your vagina smell.
Yeah, so BV specifically happens when the natural bacteria in the vagina gets out of whack, out of balance.
Okay.
And with that, for some people, there can be discharge. There can be really intense odor. It can sometimes be itchy. One woman named Jade has been grappling with BV for years, and her attempts to get rid of BV, she tried medications, over-the-counter products, holistic treatments. She's tried to change her diet, changing her soap, changing the feminine products that she uses. She said, quote, "I tried everything, and it's just so uncomfortable." Her experience of having BV return just weeks after treatment is super common. The standard medical treatment, which is antibiotics, has been unchanged for 40 years. Yet 1 month after taking antibiotics, there's a 40 to 60% chance that BV will come back.
Wow.
Whoa.
So it's one of those things where a lot of people they get it, and they literally it takes them for fucking ever to get rid of it.
It's wild how common it is.
Yep.
Yeah, and you'd think, well, we were talking about this earlier on the penis flip side of how there's how you mentioned somebody who you ran into that was like, hey, I heard your episode on phimosis.
Yeah.
I'm 40 and
Yeah.
I just got circumcised a few weeks ago.
I'll tell you the story later.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Yeah.
And I said to Jared, wow, it's crazy how that experience really encapsulates men's stigmatized issues with health in general, but specifically
with their junk.
And how this is sort of I feel that I'm getting the same vibe from this on if that there's 30% of females have this.
Yeah.
That's a gigantic number.
Yeah.
For me not to be aware of that, given it affects so many people, speaks to the stigmatized nature, the heavily stigmatized nature of it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know about it,
But even on
that many people are dealing with it.
even on top of that note, I think I think what's more important about this is tying back into that conversation that we've had so many times on the podcast before, which is that when it comes to women's health and research going towards women's health, there is such a lack of like funding, of interest, of a push forward for treating women's specific health related issues because of the like, you know, misogynistic tendencies that happen to like plague the medical community,
which is emphasized by the fact that like the antibiotics that they're prescribing
for 40 years
that are fucking
aren't doing anything,
not,
you know,
like very ineffective.
Yeah.
For a large part of people. That's insane.
It says here, quote, the fact that there hasn't been a new treatment is infuriating as a healthcare provider and as a woman, said Caroline Mitchell, director of the MGH Vulvovaginal Disorders Program. Mitchell and her patients often describe antibiotics as temporary relief rather than treatment, and the problem is deeper than the immediate discomfort. BV is associated with a lot of serious health issues regardless of whether the person experiences any symptoms. So it's linked to preterm birth. It's linked to higher risk of acquiring HIV or other sexually transmitted infections. It's linked to the persistence of human papillomavirus, HPV, and progression to cervical precancer. It seems to also be associated with infertility. And it impacts more than just the individual, because we're talking about, you know, someone's vagina and everything that goes into that, you know,
being a person that
part of the body.
that.
It really sexual identity.
Yeah, it strikes at the core of people's relationships. It makes them feel uncomfortable with intimacy with their partner, makes them feel ashamed. So what is this vaginal fluid transplant? Well, it's take fluid from a happy vagina and put it into an unhappy vagina. That's it. The science behind it is all about bacteria. So every person has trillions of bacteria living on and in their body. In most parts of the body, like the gut, having a lot of different types of bacteria is a good thing. But in the vagina, it's really that simplicity is better, said Mitchell. What she wants to see under the microscope is just one type of bacterium dominating, and it's called Lactobacillus Crispitus. And some within the scientific community have nicknamed it the, quote, superhero of the vagina. I thought that was my nickname, but anyway, we'll move right on. Heyo, it's not the same as lactobacilli in things like dairy products or like you know, sour beers and stuff like that. Or is it? It's also not similar to the one that is found in the gut. Michelle said the type of the vagina, the type found in the vagina is totally different, and she credits it with quote creating this very stable, peaceful, calm environment inside the vagina. Nobody really knows how that special power works, but Mitchell thinks it comes from the fact that this type of bacteria makes lactic acid, which keeps the vagina relatively acidic. And scientists have discovered that this environment is also correlated with less inflammation. So when looking at HIV, researchers found that the virus moves more slowly in an acidic environment, and when there's less inflammation, there are fewer targets for the virus.
Huh. Crazy.
But it's been really hard to study this superhero. As far as experts can tell, no animal besides humans have a vagina dominated by lactobacillus. Mm-hmm. So not baboons, not chimpanzees, not mice. And so that makes it really hard to do, and actually impossible to do, animal studies. So
do you guys,
the testing has to happen in humans.
Do you guys think that, like I'm just thinking of ideas for a YouTube thumbnail for this. Do you think it would be cool if we had us flying as superheroes out of a vagina on the thumbnail?
Get flagged.
I say go for it.
See what
happens.
Do you guys just want to like do whatever on YouTube, even if we get in trouble?
Might as well. I mean,
might as well. I feel like we've got a few violations that we could burn.
Yeah. Maybe we've been burning a few actually
before we get tossed.
Yeah.
So does it? Maybe it doesn't say there. If it does, then let me know. But I'm assuming that they probably have to like do some sort of.
It's a turkey baster.
Scraping isn't the right word.
No, it's a turkey baster.
Some type of. Well, I mean, there probably is something. It probably is something similar to that, I would imagine. But that they would have to get rid of the old bacteria. Like they'd have to do something that like eliminates the stuff what's there, and then basically replace it with what they want it to proliferate.
Not even. So Mitchell has a team of vaginal fluid donors who insert a menstrual cup at night and come by the lab in the morning and drop off the liquid that's been collected. They are screened for all kinds of infections, obviously. They can't travel to places where the Zika virus is common, yada, yada, whatever. They also have to abstain from sex and avoid any stray sperm sneaking into the donation. After months of painstakingly collecting the fluid, one tiny donation at a time, the actual transplant is easy. No operating room, no scalpels needed. Quote, we just use an eyedropper and we do a speculum exam. With the eyedropper, just put the fluid into the vagina. We have the person lay there for 15 minutes. Boom, that's it.
Oh, wow. So they don't have to get rid of anything that's there already.
You're just adding in this bacteria, this good bacteria, this happy bacteria,
That's
into the
gonna
unhappy place.
be
And
dominant.
it just like, well, exactly.
You know, it reminds me of I was listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast with Dr. Andrew Weil. I mentioned this last week, but he was saying that one of the indicators of people, or one of the biggest impacts on somebody who's living a depressed life, one of the best things you can do is live in a close radius to a friend of yours who perceivedly lives a positive and happy life, and that can actually make an impact on how long depression. There's like a correlation to
That's
how
cool.
long your depression will last.
I mean, that
and-
makes sense. Like if you're just hanging around with a bunch of fucking sad ass people.
Totally. And it said
Yeah.
if
Like,
you're
you're
watching
just gonna
sad
be-
movies, if
yeah.
you're listening to sad music, then it's easy
Uh.
for you to stay in that state of mind.
I wonder
And
if
so-
that's why I'm constantly terrified, because I just watch scary movies.
Probably.
I'm constantly scared. Jesus Christ, what the fuck was that? Sorry.
But
Sorry, what were you
you
saying?
live in close proximity to me, which helps keep you somewhat balanced.
Right.
Yeah, you'd be
because-
fucked otherwise.
Because I'm living that positivity vibe.
So that's basically like the bacteria, good bacteria goes in and it's like, hey, why you guys all down in here? And then
Yeah.
it cheers up,
Yeah.
it like raises the mood of the vagina.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So
good.
anyway.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you're drawing some good correlations there, Brian.
Yeah. So very cool. Thanks, Mel. That was I loved that article. I thought it was very interesting. And here's to hoping that this becomes that the again, this is in like the testing phase.
Yeah.
A trial.
I've-
But
I-
hopefully this becomes kind of the norm.
It is mind-boggling to think of like the far-reaching.
And it's like
because I think you can think you could reduce it and think of it as like, there's like this kind of bacteria, and but then once you actually think about, once you kind of start to pull the thread of the real world implications of like what this could make a person feel like,
oh my God. Change your life.
and
Like BV
30%.
Yeah. And for some people, BV is
like-
truly like just, I mean, you want to talk about getting depressed. Like it just fucks you up.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like,
I
it just
bet.
really leaves you.
Is there? I wonder if there's a penis equivalent, like something that.
yeah, just probably just not cleaning your dick and like
Yeah, but I mean something that's not self-inflicted.
But that's not, but that wouldn't be, because like BV is not, it has nothing to do with
No,
like how you,
That's what I mean.
no,
Yeah.
it doesn't. But I was just thinking about you guys with your uncut snuffleupaguses.
Well, you tend to learn that it needs attention.
yeah, it's like when you
Yeah.
shower, on a
I
daily
give my
basis.
attention. I don't need to give it that kind of attention though, because
Well, I have a special
Okay.
relationship.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say I feel bad that I thought it was a turkey baster that they used.
I mean it is, but
but
it's
it
like
is.
a really
Eyedropper.
tiny.
Yeah, it's a
turkey.
really
Yeah,
tiny
yeah,
one.
little baby
Yeah.
one.
Like, no need to go in with a big motherfucker.
Hey,
Yeah.
here's you guys probably saw this, but if you haven't seen it, Nova Scotia reports first known case of Poxy McPoxface. So the province is reporting Nova Scotia's first confirmed case of
I
Poxy
saw that.
McPoxface. The Department of Health and Wellness says the person contracted the virus outside of the province and started showing symptoms after they returned. Since then, public health officials have only identified one low-risk contact. Poxy McPoxface cases have been reported in other Canadian jurisdictions, but the risk of exposure remains low, said Chief Medical Officer Dr. Robert
Daddy
Strang.
Strang.
He said, quote, Nova Scotia is working closely with the Public Health Agency of Canada to monitor the situation here and across the country. The province is also working with the federal government to increase a supply of Poxy McPoxface vaccine. Right now, we have a, quote, very small allotment of 160 doses that is reserving for those at the highest risk of infection, like close contacts of confirmed cases. Poxy McPoxface is spread through very close, intimate person-to-person contact. Health officials say this includes sexual activity, direct contact with Poxy McPoxface sores, inhaling respiratory droplets from the coughs or sneezes of an infected person, and contact with contaminated items like bedding or clothing. It generally takes between 5 and 21 days for initial symptoms, like fever, chills, swollen lymph nodes, headache, muscle pain, joint pain, back pain, and exhaustion to appear after the exposure to the virus.
Yeah, you definitely don't want those sores kicking around.
Whoo, boy. I saw a photo. I actually meant to tee it up, but I forgot to put it on here. I saw a photo of a gentleman from the date of July 1st to August 12th. And
like a progression?
Yeah, holy frig.
Yeah.
It looks so painful.
Yeah, you don't want no part of that.
Yeah. And it looks like it's like definitely gonna like it'll scare you up. Like, you know.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Do you guys have like viral disease fatigue now, like after like post COVID, like talking about things like Poxy McPoxface? Like is it something that you're like, oh fuck, like
dude, my whole life has been a viral
about.
disease like fear.
I don't, and I hope that people don't because
it's important.
Because it's important. And like if you don't know, like, you know, if you go, I don't want to deal with this again, then well, you might just not really know how it spreads around, and then you won't be able to do the things that you might have done to prevent yourself from acquiring such a virus.
Yeah.
And then that's not good for anybody.
Good answer. Good answer.
That was good. Yeah.
So, you know, you don't, so even though it has been fucking horrific to deal with this shit for the last 3 years, and because of COVID, we're going to be more like this shit is going to hit the news way faster than it would have, you know, before COVID, because it's, you know, we live in at least for the next, probably the next decade, we're going to live in a world that's defined in a lot of ways by COVID.
Yeah, because of all those labs.
The pandemic made being a public health official a much more difficult job.
Oh my God, yeah.
You're having to communicate.
You could say much more difficult. You'd also say much more interesting. You know, I mean, Dr. Strang, before this, all this shit, all he was doing was fucking putting up those smoking posts like in 3 spots across the city and just got dumped on for it.
It'd be much more challenging because you're so much more public facing, and the moment you get more public facing, I mean, you could say that there's a positive aspect to that where there's more accountability because like you are more public facing, but then the amount that public facing part of your job drains from your ability to do the actual work of your job that isn't just communicating to the public.
Yeah, or the way it distracts you in the sense that like you know, like in Dr. Strang's case, like rock star status, you know, where you're like constantly signing boobs and kissing babies and fucking, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can only sign so many titties before your wrist before you start to get
carpal tunnel. We should have him on about his wrist carpal tunnel.
Here's an article. This article, this is hard to talk about, and this is, I mean, this is something that we'll probably be talking about in a future routine checkup episode. But in this article, it's a Forbes article, and they're specifically talking about the MAiD, medical assistance in dying laws here in Canada, and for people who don't know, the legislation of MAiD is it's been changing, it's been evolving over the last few years. I believe 2021, sometime in 2021 was the last time that there was a big shift. A new evolution of the legislation is coming up in March of 2023. And there's a lot of people who are really not okay with and uncomfortable with the way that MAiD is kind of like headed. We sort of covered a little bit of this when we were speaking about the woman in Toronto who applied for MAiD because of her long COVID, and she just can't afford to live anymore because she can't work, and there's no support, there's no social supports in place for her, and it's looking like that's going to be a go ahead. So this
like
article,
first MAiD was like sick, and now MAiD is getting a little bit.
It's getting a little bit sick.
I mean, this is.
And that's how I feel about it. I personally, I don't really vibe with where this is going. I think that it is, and again, I'll get into it in the article here. I think that MAiD's highly important, but I also don't think that it should be used as a excuse to not provide the services that people need to have a quality of life.
And this is the thing that, I mean, you can draw a comparison to, to a ton of legal issues. If we're like just to reduce it to a legal thing as like a part of legislature, that where people go, hey, I am opposed to this, not necessarily because of the form that it takes now, but the legal doors that it opens once the first door is opened. What other doors are then presented, and are we going to like the series of things that come after this as a result of opening this door?
Yeah, it's like the unintended consequences.
Totally, yeah. And I again, like, I think we're all in agreement. We're big fans of MAiD, and it's sort of like in its original, and not that the original version of it was rock solid and didn't need improvement or anything. It did, and but you can start to see how as this progresses, people that were opposed to it in the first place are going, hey, like, look, like this is a part of what we didn't want. Like,
it's
what
interesting.
we were afraid of happening.
It's interesting though, when you hear stories of how the legislation impacts people on an individual level. So like, I mean, first we heard Audrey Parker's story, and like from her perspective, and what she's sort of shone a light on for us was like how amazing this was, how amazing of an opportunity this was for her to die with dignity.
Yeah. I mean, she also had her issues with it.
Totally.
Like
she would have liked to have lived longer, because one of the things was that you had to be of sound mind when you ended your life. And so
did I tell you, Brian, that after Rich's show the other night, we saw Rich O'Coin at the Shore Club last week, which was fucking awesome. And after the show, when we were all walking down to the beach, I was talking to a gal who's a doc, and she provides MAiD.
Yeah, cool. You did say that, actually.
And it was really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, go ahead, Jer.
So this is a Forbes article. It's an article that came out of the United States, and basically, this is the title of it. Canada's new MAiD laws carry upsetting Nazi-era echoes, warns experts. They also use euthanasia, but I've switched euthanasia laws with MAiD laws. Canada's extremely liberal MAiD laws, which next year are set to be extended to include people suffering from mental illness conditions and potentially minors, have been slammed for being reminiscent of the way that Nazis dealt with people with disabilities by a leading academic in the field. In an article published by the Associated Press last week, Tim Stainton, director of the Canadian Institute for Inclusion and Citizenship at the University of British Columbia, said the country's uniquely permissive MAiD laws were, quote, probably the biggest existential threat to disabled people since the Nazi program in Germany in 1930s. The AP article additionally detailed the story of a 61-year-old Alan Nichols, who had a history of hearing loss and depression, and according to Nichols' brother, was unlawfully put to death by the Canadian state in 2019. Though Nichols' family cited a pitiful lack of oversight and gross negligence on behalf of the medical professionals treating him, the Canadian Mounted Police, and in conjunction with British Columbia's health ministry, declined to bring forth any criminal charges.
Yeah, I don't want to like oversimplify what we're talking about here, but basically, so that people have an idea going into this, the extending MAiD to people who live with mental illnesses is its intent. The government's intent in doing that is to provide access for people who are suffering to end their lives if they so choose to. But the argument that this article is making is basically saying, without trying to provide people adequate resources to prevent themselves from suffering in the first place, you're actually just offering them an opportunity to end their own life without helping.
It's not just people with mental illness. This is all. We're also talking about people with disabilities, with physical disabilities, and so the point here is that accessibility is, in most cases, that precious ethos and lifeblood which allows people with disabilities to thrive as functioning members of society. Yet within this sphere, unfettered accessibility could indeed prove to be one of the most malignant forces the disability community has to contend with since the, quote, mercy killings of the Third Reich almost 9 decades ago. Dr. Ramona Coelho, a Canadian family physician, told the AP, the whole premise of the legislation is built on a discriminatory approach to people with disabilities. Most Canadians think that this is a service of compassion offered for people who have nothing left to be offered and are being offered death as a way out, when in fact the system is being applied so liberally and so easily in such a short time period that people are dying who would have recovered with greater care and resources to live. So it's becoming so easy to just end your life, and that's an easier way out than to just be given the access to the shit that could potentially give you a long-lasting, healthy, thriving, enjoyable life. And it's because, Canada just isn't willing to step up and fucking make those choices to support.
I think that's an incredibly profound and important point to make. The one thing that challenges me about this article is the comparison to the Nazis and what they did.
It might be a little bit sensational in order to get more
prove
reader,
a point
and to get more readers.
I think it is, but it's just hard to hear that because I do believe that the intent in what I believe that the government's intent, and call me naive for believing this, but I believe the intent is pure, but probably misguided and ill-informed. And with advocacy work like this and people shining a light on the sort of unintended consequences that we referenced before, I believe that this can change.
The average person's capacity to make comparisons to Nazi Germany in 2022 is it's a touch liberal.
Yeah,
it's a little easy for people to make that correlation these days. But
I mean, like, just to just to kind of throw in another opinion here about that. I agree with everything you just said. But as someone who, lives with a disability, if I was in a position where I felt like the country I lived in would rather see me end my life, so instead of offer me the resources that I need to actually live a life with dignity, right? I would kind of look at it like,
but it is
okay. Like I see now where you see how I fit into your society. But I'm worthless. I don't have worth. You don't want me to be a part of this.
But it is this is.
And again, this is why this is so fucking.
We're gonna dig. This is it's hard to dig in. It's hard. I don't want to necessarily dig down this deep, but But it is an intent. It is an intent thing. Like, I think the people that are doing this,
no, of course,
they're not approaching it in that way, which is where the Nazi thing doesn't really fit.
Yes,
you know what I mean. Like, I don't think that's the intention of the decisions that are being made in the evolution of MAiD. It's just it's taking one step at a time, and it's like the last step makes the next step easier.
But I mean,
and that's where it's come to. And I think
that isn't what Tim didn't say. I mean, like the article title said that, but what Tim Stanton said, he didn't say this is reminiscent of Nazi Germany. He said this is probably the biggest existential threat to disabled people since the Nazis.
I would say that you have opened the door to a lot of shit, and I would like to see that reversed. And the sad thing is that I don't think, this is the pessimistic part of me, which doesn't come up very much. I think that if we were going to right this wrong in a legislative way, which would, again, because in a perfect world, we would go, hey, let's solve the problem of the resources that people who live with disabilities need, so that they don't feel like this is necessary. That's the best case scenario. But the more accessible this becomes, the less people with disabilities are going to be around to make noise that the change is needed. And so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if we were going to if we were going to kind of close this door that we've opened, I would guess that the most likely scenario would for this whole thing to be axed and to go back to what we had before MAiD was even available at all.
Well, I think that the other really sad thing that we haven't mentioned here is that there are people who live with disabilities who are advocating for MAiD to be more accessible to them, and it's the people who have been so wronged by the system or let down by the system who are, advocating for it and are not not even aware that like they want MAiD because their situation is so bad. Who are because there are voices in the disabled community who are like, give me MAiD. Because I want to end my suffering. And it's those people that I feel the worst for, who have been let down and think that that is their option, when really the better option is to do what, Taylor, you mentioned is incredibly difficult to do, which is provide them with the actual access to the help that they need.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the quotes, the quote that kind of ends this article, which I think really stands out, is, in an era where we recognize the right to die with dignity, we must do more to guarantee the right to live with dignity. And that's where Canada's failing.
Yeah,
and that's a big bummer.
I'd love to see, like what are the if because it feels like, and not to like bring this back to my ADHD brain and the way, like thinking of all the steps involved, because it feels overwhelming to think of all those steps involved. But I'd love to see if there was a way to like know which factors are influencing the most amount of people. Like where is assistance required the most, or where is help needed the most to provide these types of services?
I don't even think you could say the most. Okay, I think there's just
so
many.
many.
What are those areas? Like it feels like talking about this problem, it feels so hard to
basic income would be one, right? Like that's an easy one right there.
I mean, we heard about that in that other example about the that person who felt like, they just didn't have enough money to live after long COVID.
Housing is like another,
like if you were going to boil it down, it's money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's money that grants access to the plethora of things that people would, in a perfect world, have access
to mental health care, like mental health care, period.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd love to speak to somebody who's working on this, because, or at least like, I hope that somebody's working on this.
Yeah. Let's turn things around, find something a little cuter here to talk about. This is I think this is just adorable and pretty sweet.
This is a palate cleanser.
It is a palate cleanser, yeah.
I have to pee so bad.
All right. All right, we're back. Let's cleanse the palate. The Restaurant of Mistaken Orders, a Tokyo restaurant where all the servers are people living with dementia.
Dennis sent this. This is funny.
Oh, I love this. If you've ever been to Japan, I haven't, but I can't wait.
I have been.
You'll know that in Japanese restaurants, mistakes are not made. And on the off chance that a mistake is made, even a trivial one, the lengths that proprietors will go to make things right with their customers must, in the eyes of the Westerner, be seen to be believed. But as its name suggests, the Tokyo pop-up restaurant of Mistaken Orders does things a bit differently.
Is that the name of the restaurant?
It's called the Restaurant of Mistaken Orders.
Taylor, do you know what this is about?
Quote.
I mean, other than what he just said,
you might think it's crazy. A restaurant that can't even get your order right, says its English introduction page. All of our servers are people living with dementia. They may or may not get your order right. Un-Japanese, though that concept may seem at first, it actually reflects realities of Japanese society in the 21st century. Japan has an aging population with an already high proportion of elderly people, and that puts it on track to have the fastest growing number of prevalent cases of Alzheimer's disease. Wow. Whole towns have already begun to structure their services around a growing number of citizens with dementia. But the dementia itself remains, quote, widely misunderstood, says Restaurant of Mistaken Orders producer Shiro Oguni in the concept movie of the top at the top of this article here. Quote, people believe you can't do anything for yourself, and the condition will often mean isolation from society. We want to change society to become more easygoing, so dementia or no dementia, we can live together in harmony. Some employees at the Restaurant of Mistaken Orders are in their middle age. Some are in their 10th decade of life. But all seem to have a knack for building a rapport with their customers, a skill that anyone who has ever worked front of house in a restaurant will agree is essential, especially when mistakes happen. We see them deliver orders both correct and incorrect, but the diners seem to enjoy the experience either way. quote, 37% of our orders were mistaken, the restaurant reports, but 99% of our customers said they were happy. This contains another truth about Chinese food culture that anyone who has eaten in Japan will acknowledge whatever you order, the chance of it being delicious is approximately 100%.
Approximately. So what do you guys think is the...
I love that. I would love to go to a restaurant where I'm like, I'm going to order something and I have no idea what's coming.
I know, but
I love that.
You're up for rolling the dice.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But if you really wanted something specific at this and you went to this restaurant, you were like, "Fuck, I really want that." Would you order something else and hope that's what came? Or would you order that?
If I really wanted the
statistically, you should order it since it's only 37%. But
yeah,
if I really wanted it and it came out, it wasn't my order. Then
you'd probably yell.
No, I'd probably just go I would probably just see someone who
ordered what you
ordered what I got, and when they put it down on the table, I would go over and tell them this is all part of the experience. I need you to get up and go take somebody else's seat, and just make it almost like it's a performance art piece, and then
so you would sit with their table.
Yeah. And I would tell them, this is a part of the restaurant. We have a policy here, so I need you to go sit where I sat.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah.
And all the servers would be too confused.
They wouldn't know
to say whether you're actually doing something or not.
Yeah, they wouldn't. They wouldn't remember. I mean, 34% of them wouldn't remember.
Right.
Taylor,
where I was sitting anyway.
Taylor, you're so annoying to service professionals that you would send your meal back at this place.
What?
You'd be pissed, and then and then
Brian,
even if you enjoyed the experience, you'd only tip your max percentage, which would be 10%.
What's frustrating about this is that that I am the
12% if they got the
opposite of that, because I am somebody who would never ask a server a question at a restaurant. I look at a menu, I go, "That's what I want." And that's it. And it takes 2 seconds.
I think servers like that.
But Brian is right about you not tipping. That's
I tip 15%. If it's fucking regular.
If it's exceptional, you tip 15%.
Yeah, if it's exceptional, that's a 15% tip. Hey, here's
you know what? Wait, I just want to say about the restaurant.
Yeah.
You know what so this seems really cute, and it seems like
it does.
Hey, 37% of the time they get the order wrong. That's okay. But don't you think there's a potential, it's not just that part of it that would be hard for them to do? Would they remember to come back to your table and fill up your water? Do they remember where you're even sitting? How do you pay for your bill? Do they charge you for what you got or for what you ordered?
Do they charge you at all?
It seemed, right. Do they just leave and go, okay.
You're going to have to travel to Japan.
That's just the servers, right? So I'm sure there's other people working there that actually know what's going on. I doubt every employee of the entire building has dementia because I feel like not a lot of it get done.
But maybe,
the finance department, they have dementia.
Probably not dementia.
They're just
maybe
we don't know. This is where am I? I would love to go to that restaurant though, and I think it is a really beautiful way to just to spread awareness to something that seems to be not really well known.
Right, but it also helps elderly people live healthy lives into old age. Yes. This is what you hear about East Asian cultures is that they treat elderly people, they keep them part of their family and part of their community. And one of the things that we sort of get flack for in the West is that we, box our old people up and put them in a home together. And that has been shown to quickly deteriorate their health over time. So it's cool that they're doing that. Yeah. And I think we can learn a lot from that.
Here's this week's What the Hell? This is really cool. This CNN put this out. There were these manuscripts from the 15th and 16th century that were resurfaced, and they were medical manuscripts, and they revealed some gruesome medical remedies.
How old were they?
15th and 16th century, medieval era. Well, nowadays you might have some chicken soup to fight a cold. A new project unearthing manuscripts from up to 1,000 years old reveals the bizarre medical remedies recommended by those in the medieval era. The violence of medieval society is detailed in the recipes, from gruesome animal-derived treatments to advice on how to set broken bones or determine whether a skull has been fractured. The UK's Cambridge University Library has launched the 2-year project to digitize, catalog, and conserve the more than 180 medieval manuscripts containing approximately 8,000 unedited handwritten medical recipes.
That's so cool.
Most of the manuscripts date to the 14th, 5th, or 15th centuries, with the oldest being 1,000 years old. Some are simple pocketbooks designed to be carried around and could have been made by medical practitioners themselves, according to a news release from the University of Cambridge Wednesday. The recipes typically comprise of a short series of simple instructions, similar to a modern-day prescription or a cookbook. In the text, there are common ingredients that we are familiar with today, including herbs like sage, rosemary, thyme, and mint, as well as spices such as cumin, pepper, and ginger. However, there are also some questionable ones, particularly those deriving from animals.
Are there spells? I feel like
these sound like spells. Okay, so if you got gout in the medieval times, one medieval treatment involves stuffing a puppy with snails.
A puppy, like a live dog.
A live dog. Stuffing a puppy with snails and sage and roasting the animal over a fire. The rendered fat is then used to make an ointment. An alternative recipe proposed salting an owl and baking it until it could be ground into a powder and mixed with boar's grease to make an ointment to rub onto the sufferer's body.
I mean, they used what they had available to them.
Yeah. What about cataracts? You got cataracts? Well, mix a rabbit's gallbladder with honey and apply it to your eyeball with a feather.
Oh, fuck.
And then this was a 3-night course of treatment. So you do that over 3
I don't
nights.
understand how that...
What the fuck were they thinking?
Because if you take a fucking dirty feather and put that shitty ointment on it and rub it in your eye, the first time you do that and the person gets an eye infection that's 10 times worse than whatever they had.
They're like, but you don't have cataracts anymore, do you?
Aren't they like this? This fucking thing didn't work.
You know what's interesting about this is that, and us shitting on it, is that
we had to go through it.
Is that what we do now for prescription drugs is just it. There's probably a lot of shit. I'm speculating here, but there's probably a lot of shit in what they were saying, like do this. But it was really like you actually need this like extremely. You don't need the owl and you don't need the gallbladder, but you do need this like tiny little molecule that's in the gallbladder mixed with these other things that come from other live or plant-based whatever things, and we're going to put them together in a lab and then give you an effective treatment.
But if you took a Tylenol and put it into dog shit and then fucking swallowed it, you're going to get sick.
No, I know.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is that what we do now is just like, crazy specific.
We figured out the thing that worked.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to step in and say yes and no, because there's a fuckload of shit that was going on in the medieval times where
I know
they was just made up.
No, definitely.
It was like, I mean, we were going. I'm sorry. You say you had a dream last night about someone sitting on your chest, and they're like, yeah, it's the fucking weirdest dream. And they go, witch, burner, get her right there, burner. She's a witch for sure. She's a witch for sure.
I'm not saying that it was just like, that everything was just
stuff her with puppies.
Waiting to be specified.
And then burn her. Yeah. I mean, like, it just, a lot of it was just fucking crazy. But here's
Placebo. Placebo works.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Here's some images from some of these manuscripts. This is one about bloodletting. So here's all the spots where you bloodlet. Looks like you cut the tip of the penis there for a little bit.
Actually did find out that bloodletting is still useful in a very specific...
A very, very, very slim amount of things. They were bloodletting for everything. They were like, you got a migraine? Here, come over here. They'll drill a fucking hole in your head.
That's a dope diagram, though.
Here's one. This is, what do you think these flasks are filled with?
Potions.
Potions.
For sure.
What are they? What's on top of them?
Well, what's on top of them are is the alien. So each flask is filled with a liquid. The liquid is the same no matter what the color. They all just have different liquid colors. On the tops of those liquids it describes what the ailment is described from based on the color of the liquid that they are examining.
Oh,
It's
What
like
do you
a
think
test
that liquid
kit.
is?
Oh,
Nope.
pee.
urine.
It is urine.
Yeah.
See, well,
Yeah.
that's so that's very insightful
Yeah.
because we well, I don't know if we wouldn't do
I mean,
it. We wouldn't do it based on color, but
yeah,
feces
no.
we still we like you can tell a lot by
The
Fecal
Bristol,
chart.
the Bristol stool
yeah
chart.
you can tell a lot
yeah,
by like the
yeah.
consistency and the color of poop.
Yeah. So anyway, I fucking love that article. I thought it was great. I've been listening to a podcast about the medieval times right now, and it's fucking fascinating. It's such a crazy time.
Those manuscripts looked fucking cool though. Like I would
They
love
do.
to, if
Oh,
they're
yeah.
in the process of digitizing them, it'd
Yeah.
be really fun for each one of us to flip through and find
Yeah.
some really interesting.
And then
Chart to,
perform,
like-
and then
to, like,
pick
show
one
one
that we're going
another.
to perform on one another.
Yeah, that'd be cool actually. We should try to,
Stuff a puppy with snails
we should
and
make
then roast it,
make some of that
and then
stuff.
render the fat and stick it up your asshole.
That
They
shit is
really,
crazy.
how
Fucking
few fucks did medieval people give?
None. It was like if you were to if we had a time machine, like if you had a time machine, you know, you ask the question, like if you had a time machine, like where would you go? I don't think anyone really has a fucking, like, I think a very, very small amount of people have an actual fucking clue how horrifically horrifying the medieval times would be to even just witness. Dude, like somebody goes, oh, I'd love to go to the medieval times and like watch and like see how they like get, how they like live their lives. I'd be like, oh, you just want to take a time traveling machine to hell? That's what you want?
Yeah.
Yep.
You just want to go to hell?
Because it's not
'Cause
like
that's
the
what
movies.
Earth was.
You know, like when
No, God, no.
in like Army of Darkness when
yeah.
Ash shows up back in the like medieval times and they're like he's magic and they're like they like revere him for like his magical skills and like he lights a lighter and they're like fire, whoa, that's crazy. They would just kill him.
Yeah.
But
They
like,
would be
even,
like,
but
"Fuck
like, but
that."
even if you were, yeah, I mean, I don't even mean that. I mean, like, if you were able to go to a time machine and you're
After
in like
they
some
talk
sort,
to his boomstick.
yeah, this is my boomstick. You're in some sort of bubble and you can't be seen, but you can just witness. You can
Oh
just
yeah,
watch.
it would be
yeah.
horrific.
It would be so. Do you guys know what being broken on the wheel was?
No.
This is a form of execution in the medieval times. Breaking the wheel was another term for it. What they would do is the executioner would tie you up on posts where your arms and legs are extended out from your body,
Mm.
right? So you're on the ground, you're starfished out.
Quarter.
Oh yeah.
No. You're just laying there flat out. They would take a giant wagon wheel or any other blunt object, but oftentimes they'd use like a giant wooden wagon wheel, and they would slam down on your limbs, on your arms and your legs. They would crush the bones in your arms and legs to the point where your arms and legs now just resemble like the arms of a jellyfish or of a octopus. Like there's literally just mush. There's no more bone.
Ew.
They crush the bones, right? So then they're not done. Then they untie you and they take you and they place you atop the wheel. So the wheel is on the ground and it's got a bunch of spokes around it. They place your body on top of the wheel. You're still alive at this point. You're just in horrendous pain because all your bones in your arms and legs are dust. They lay you on the wheel and then they take your arms and the legs and they thread them up and over, down and up through the spokes of the wheel. So now you're just pretzel tied to the spokes of this wheel with your torso just on the fucking, on like facing the sky. And you look like some abominate, like some like alien type abomination. And then they take the wheel and they place it on a fucking giant pole and they just kind of spin it and just leave you out there for days baking in the sun. And you die several days later after just hanging out on this wheel.
You know what the
How
craziest
who
thing?
thought of that?
Yeah.
Who was going, I got an idea.
But you know
See
what-
that big wheel there?
Someone who
so
was
the cra-
fucking
it's not even the
crazy.
fact that somebody thought of it. It's that everybody was like,
Sure.
okay,
And not only that,
showed up.
everybody shows up
Yeah,
and they start
watched.
watching. And on top of this, this is from Hardcore History with Dan Carlin. While this person, like while people, there's accounts of people being broken on the wheel, and while they're having that happen to them, they are reciting and like singing hymns, religious hymns, and doing call and response with the audience. And the audience is like looking at this person being executed going, this guy gets it. This guy fucks. He's going to heaven because he's yelling out to his creator while he's facing death. And we dig this guy. This is fucking cool. Let's sing with him. And he's just singing, and then he's telling the executioner, the executioner, he's going, hey, this next verse, tell them I want them to sing it in Latin. And then he's going, yeah, all right, guys, sing in Latin. He wants to sing in Latin.
They're doing parcel tongue and
dude,
like
it's
shit.
it's crazy. It's like, and everybody was just like, that was a good Monday.
You know, it's something that is overlooked today in the most broad sense. I mean, because there are people out there that are living in hell for sure currently, but right now, it's the best.
It's a good time to be alive.
It's the best it's ever been.
It's a good time to be
for
alive.
the most amount of people. It's the best it's ever been.
When you compare it to the medieval age,
you know what? Suddenly having ADHD paralysis isn't so bad.
yeah.
Do you feel like that meme? Do you feel like that meme that's like the dog that's like a bodybuilder, and he's like, I'm going to I'm gonna go out and fucking kill my meal tonight, and then it's like 10,000 years later, and it's like a little chihuahua that's like, I ate something foreign and my belly hurts.
I haven't seen that.
Folks, that's it. We're done. So support the podcast. Go to Discord. Join the conversation there. Also, leave a rating and review wherever you're watching this and or listening. And tickets are on sale now. Vancouver, September 21st. Edmonton, September 19th. We can't wait to see you. It's going to be really fun.
And I think probably the thing that I would like to get some feedback on from our listeners is the BV part of the episode. I feel like it's a really heavily stigmatized thing that not many people are talking about, even though it seems to be insanely common. So anonymously or non-anonymously, if you want to reach out to us and let us know about maybe a story or an experience or your life experience with BV, then let us know at letters@sickboypodcast.com. And if you want to be a guest on the show, go to sickboypodcast.com/contact and fill out the form.
And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And a huge thank you to Jeff Lonis, who is our manager, and to Rich O'Coin for the theme music. We love you guys very much.
That is it for this week.
I'm Brian.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jeremy. And this is Sick Boy.